ассоциируюсь, то есть человеческой с полы прям, да. Блин, как пришлось. Надо каждый день что-то новое, понимаешь? Ну, он понимает. Хотя бы даже просто. Но это не лучший вариант. Потому что я тоже так.
Если ты не делаешь рекламу в интернете, то пропускай это видео. А если ты хочешь сделать рекламу более эффективной и зарабатывать больше, то смотри внимательно. И привет, меня зовут Герман Гаврилов.
Hello, welcome back to Jazz Ranch. It's Christmas time here. I've got the red tie on. And if you happen to be watching this during the summer, it's Christmas time here now. And sorry about the dark glasses, but the tree lights are blinding me. And I have a special French Christmas song for you tonight. It's called Angels We Have Heard While High. Wait a minute, I didn't get that right. Angels We Have Heard on High. Yes. And anyway, it's a French Christmas song. We're going to interpret it from a jazz point of view. In other words, how do we make a Christmas song swing? How do we give it the right kind of bass line and chord progression and reharmonization to make it sound like a jazz interpretation? So here we go now with Angels We Have Heard on High. Start by saying that this particular Christmas carol, which comes...
По-французски было «parler français», «parlant», да. I don't have practice English lessons. Да, на французском просто идет. Ну нет. Try it out. Jésus.
It's from a 19th century French carol, traditional carol. We don't have a composer for it, but that's where it came from, the 19th century, 1800s in other words. And this particular one is very adaptable to a jazz interpretation. Now, why is that? Because it has a lot of chords, and the chords 5-1 or a 2-5 kind of progression, which makes it adaptable to jazz, because jazz is all about 2-5-1s, pretty much. In other words, smoothing out the harmony so that they have nice transitions from one chord to the next. So now the way I interpreted this arrangement was that I had this, I want to create a contrast between the front of the chord, which is the first 8 bars, and then you might call it like the verse and the refrain. So we'll say the verse is the first or the A section, and the refrain is the B section. So we like to think of the songs as being divided into sections and give them specific names. So like we have verse, refrain. So the verse is the first 8 measures, and the refrain is the next, well, it's a little more than 8 measures, but it's maybe 12 measures. Anyway, the chord progression for the first 8 is, it's very simple, like that. It's like we're in the key of F, so it's F to a B flat, back to F, and then a C7. So it's just a 1-3, you know, 3 chords. In other words, a 1, a 4, and a 5. Like here it is, 1 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord, 1 chord, 5, like that. So what I did was in jazz we try to, or good harmony, we try to create an interesting bass line. So I'm going to go like this. So I'm going to approach that 4 chord chromatically from the 1 down to the 4 chord, but with the 5th in the bass. And then I go to that's a B flat. I go to a B flat minor there, and then I go to the 5 chord there, but with the 1 here, and then the 5. On the next. So here we have this nice bass line in the upper register, harmonizing in the right hands. So now when I get to the refrain, this goes like this. Now approach to the, now it's the 3 chord, but half diminished. That means A minor 7 flat 5. Now I can really get into some really nice, thick, and whatever, juicy jazz chords like this. So I have A minor 7 flat 5. Now go to the 5 chord. You can always dress up your 5 chords, your dominant 7ths, with great voicings. Like this one is a D7 with a sharp 9. Okay, with a flat 13. Sharp 9 and flat 13 in there, rather than a boring sounding chord like this. Probably the way the composer written was like this, or maybe even this, like that. But I'm creating a can't do 5 now. A minor 7 half diminished to a D7 going to a G minor 7 half diminished. I'm creating these 2 5-1s. Now I can dress it up with a sharp 9 and a flat 13. So I'll do the same thing for the C7. There's that sharp 11 in there now. Now here I'm going to change it because it's too predictable. If I do the same chord, it's too predictable. Like too predictable. So I'm going to go A13. Now I'm going to do a dominant chord, not a minor chord, but a dominant 7th with a 13 in it. And then now I can go here to a D7. These are great, really dense and thick and interesting jazz chords. To a 2 there now and a 5. Now just descending. I'm going to do a diminished chord there because it sounds nice. Descending. See, so these bass line moving really work nicely in this tune. There it is again. So da 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 da. So you can see the bass line. If you understand bass line, then you can understand everything about jazz voicings, because you just have to put the right chord above the bass line. But if you get the bass line right, then you're really going to be swinging. Okay, so we'll move on now. That's all for tonight, and thanks for joining me. And I want to say until next time, have a merry little Christmas and a really groovy Happy New Year. And until next time, I'll say swing loose, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.
One day when Harry Truman was president, he noticed that the piano he kept upstairs for his daughter Margaret appeared to be tilting. And when he looked more closely, he saw to his astonishment that one of the piano legs had actually gone through the floor. Experts examined the problem and they discovered that the floor beneath the piano, and indeed much of the original throughout the house, by then nearly a century and a half old, had become dangerously weak. In the renovation that followed, the interior of this grand old place was taken down beam by beam and entirely rebuilt. Now you may be wondering why I'm mentioning all this. Well, I want Mr. Horowitz to know, you may be sorry for this one. Today is the second time in the history of this building that a piano brought down the house. in the Ukraine in 1904. Young Vladimir Horowitz studied at the Kiev Conservatory under Felix Blumenfeld, who in turn had been a pupil of Anton Rubinstein, absorbing the tradition of virtuoso performance that had reached greatness during the 19th century with such performers as Chopin and Liszt. Then the fury of the modern world broke into his life. In the Russian Revolution, his parents lost everything, even the family piano. His father was unable to find work, so Vladimir himself, still only 17 and painfully shy, was forced to begin performing in order to support his family. It was a difficult experience at first, enduring the chaos of civil war in Russia, performing again and again for no greater payment than flour or chocolates. In his own words, "I felt the atmosphere in Russia, I identified with them and tried to put it all into my playing."
She put down the album that time.
Yes. Yeah. Honey, I told you to do it only if I didn't get any applause in it. Well, where was I? Well, soon word began to spread that Mr. Horowitz, there was something special. In 1925, he left the Soviet Union, and in 1926, he gave his first performances in the West. At the end of that tour, all the world knew Mr. Horowitz was a master of technique, the greatest of our time. In depth of feeling, he was a genius. I've noted before that the conductor, Sir Thomas Beecham, jokingly remarked after a performance, "Really, Mr. Horowitz, you can't play like that. It shows the orchestra." During the many decades since, Vladimir Horowitz has continued to enrich the world. Several periods of so-called retirement caused alarm that perhaps he had left the stage for good. But Mr. Horowitz used those periods for long and intensive study, and each time when he returned, his stature was enhanced. As one critic stated of Mr. Horowitz's 1940 return, he returns to us as extraordinary a virtuoso as he ever was, but a far greater artist. It was just months ago that Mr. Horowitz staged perhaps the most triumphant return of his career, a return to the land of his birth. "I have never forgotten my Russia," he explained. "I remember the smells when the snow melts and the spring arrives. I had to go back." His performances in Moscow and Leningrad represented the appearance of what one Soviet critic called indisputably the brightest bearer of the Russian performing tradition. No more need be said of these performances than this, as those in the audience listened, their eyes brimmed with tears. On his return to the United States, it was my honor to present Mr. Horowitz, an American citizen, with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Mr. Horowitz traveled to the Soviet Union under the Cultural Exchange Agreement that Mr. Gorbachev and I had signed at our first summit in Geneva. It's fitting to have Mr. Horowitz here in the White House so shortly before Mr. Gorbachev and I meet again. And in preparing for this meeting, I have found words of Mr. Horowitz's coming to mind. "I am not a communist," he said.
Нету ничего. Ну-ка. Кто здесь? Сам ты такой. Музыка. Сказал. Thank